So I am going to get started with the class. I'll be sharing my slides with you, and please forgive me my typos. Every time I go through it, I fix 10 and I feel like I've made 6 others. I have tried my best though, but there's a double have in there that I went back to look for and I couldn't find it again. So we are going to talk about plotting tonight, which is lots and lots of fun. And if we're all ready, here we go. These are my slides. Let me just quickly hop in here and mute everyone. And if you're ready, I'm going to get started. I'm still letting a few people in if you're wondering what buttons I'm pressing on my screen. But we are going to get through everything. I hope you're excited about our evening. So, plotting for Pansters. Firstly, hello, writer. You have found your way to Deadlines for Writers. It is an online writing community, and we believe that deadlines are the solution. We meet daily, weekly, and monthly deadlines. The site offers you a safe place to practice, improve, and hone your craft. Today, we're going to talk about our daily deadlines. After all, we believe a deadline is the fastest way to fill a blank page. So welcome home, writer. Those of you who do not know me, my name is Mia. I'm a creative writing teacher and coach. I trained as a copywriter. I have a degree in creative writing. I have worked as a ghostwriter. I'm a picture book writer, and I'm an underwriter, but not the insurance kind. I have pretty much written it all and I have taught it all. In my more than 13 years of teaching experience, I have learned that plotters are more likely to finish. But if they do stop, it's because they're bored. Plansters sometimes finish, and even though they might get lost in the middle, they're at least having fun. So the one suffers from boredom of knowing everything, and the other gets lost in the tangle of tangents. Neither is ideal. How this works. This session is going to be about 60 minutes long, I hope. Just so you know, after the class, I will make you an offer to join the 30 Days of Plotting Challenge. The cost of the challenge is $140. You are under no obligation to join. Please enjoy the class, but I hope I will be able to convince you of the value of the challenge. So please stay tuned for an amazing practical session chock full of writing theory and advice that will help you plan your book. This is not your average writing class. I will explain how the challenge works, how we apply the theory of writing during the challenge, and how it will help you to plan your story. I created the 30 Days of Plotting Challenge because I learned that writers needed to focus intensely on their planning without getting distracted by big word counts and too much theory. The challenge offers you a chance to figure out your story before you get lost or untangle the mess that you have made. So how it works. In short, I created the system I needed when I was writing and getting lost in many messy manuscripts. I was you, and this is what you need to figure out your book. You can, of course, do this on your own and lose a few another 100 words and not finish again. But given that you are here, I'm guessing that you're ready to figure it out. So the theory of novel writing is important, but it often overshadows the importance of the mental game. We need to trust ourselves and we need to trust our ideas. But if that seems a little far off, we need to trust the process at least. This is where most writers fail. The self-doubt wins out over the trust. This challenge offers you the opportunity to test your story idea before you embark on the whole story. Throughout the challenge, I'm going to share little pieces with you, specifically by Casa Kane. He did the challenge last year, and every few days I'd get a little email update of how Casa was doing. So I thought I would share these with you as we go along because it gives you a nice insight into the experience of doing the challenge. So on day 6, Casa wrote, I just wanted to rave about the benefits I'm getting from the 30 days of plotting, and it's only day 6. I normally might do a bit of plotting, but I generally skip the type of exercises you've had us doing. Flipping through a book, I might see a day in the life exercise and think, yeah, I know what's what. Let's discover that tortured past. Instead, now, I have a wonderful scene taking place during the timeline of my first novel, which reveals a great deal about the new POV character, as I did today's assignment, and there are still 24 more amazing. So the plan for tonight is we are going to talk about should we plot, should we not plot? We're going to talk about what is plotting. I'm going to explain to you what is an idea versus a plot. We're going to talk a little bit about the word counts and we're going to break it down. I'm going to talk about decision making, the importance of taking action and trust. We're going to discuss the theory of plotting. We'll have a Q&A, and then we have a short little writing session at the end just to kind of take all of this inspiration and start putting it on the page. Excuse me, I have a frog in my throat. We'll also discuss the system that has helped many writers start and finish their books, a process that has helped them get from page 1 to the end. So, okay, we're all here because we want to finish a book. We want to write a story from the beginning to the end, and we don't want to get lost in the middle. That's where the trouble with plotting comes in. Plotting gives the impression that if you plot before you start, all your writing woes will be gone. You will end up with a perfect 80,000 word book that appears on the shelf in mere months. It doesn't quite work like that, does it? So this is dangerous thinking, because when that doesn't happen, we think we have failed. We think we aren't real writers. We think we can't do this. So how do we avoid feeling like this and get these books written? So the first question is to plot or not. We've always been told that plotting is the only way to write a book. I remember when I was starting out on my journey, I was desperate to plot. The trouble that the plotting created was the illusion that the trouble is plotting creates this illusion that writing the book will be easy as long as you've done the plotting. This is not the case. I tried everything several times over and I failed again and again. This had me believing all the crap that popped into my head. So in Mia's head, I'm not a real writer. My ideas suck. What will people think? My writing is terrible. I will never finish a book. I will never write a good book. This is so cliche. I'm an imposter. I can't be a writer if I can't plot. But if you want help, if you want to do this, if you are a writer struggling to remain focused, and if you're finally ready to plan your book and only stick to one idea until you get to the end, keep watching because you are ready. You are good enough and your idea is good enough. So I'm going to show you how we use the 30 Days of Plotting Challenge to overcome self-doubt, stop procrastination, and stick to one idea. A goal without a plan is just a wish. So this is your plan. We are going to prep your plot. If you really want to write a good book, if you want to be a great writer, if you want to be a best-selling author, there are a few things you need to do first. Think of this challenge as a test for your story. You don't run an ultra marathon without planning. So why do we write books without training and planning? At the end of the 30 days, you will have the tools and hopefully enough material that will help you make those dreams come true and sustain you for 80,000 words. You're about to discover how to show up to the page, how to trust your story enough that you can finish your book. So let's quickly take a moment to look at what is plotting. We need to reevaluate what we think plotting is. Yes, plotting can be a meticulous plan, carefully sculpted and planned out on novel writing software before a word has even been put on the page. But plotting can also be a rough outline on a serviette scribbled around an old coffee stain. If you have a good memory, it can be a mere idea of your beginning, middle, and end. Plotting looks different for everyone. Beth, one of my students, says, I write it to find it. That is her process. She has a strong idea of her story. She knows her big scenes and she fills in the gaps as she writes. I like to say 99% of writing problems are solved by, you guessed it, writing. We'll talk about the importance of taking action in a moment. But I've been writing all my life and I have been teaching for more than 13 years. I can tell you that writers who do some kind of plotting are more likely to finish. Pantsing or just writing. Someone asked me what is a pantser. So just very quickly, a pantser is someone who writes by the seat of their pants. Okay, meaning they show up to the page and they just let rip. There is no planning, no plotting done. Okay, so pantsing or just writing might seem easier, but those are the writers who tend to give up because they have no backup. Any challenge or tangle is blamed on writer's block and the story is trashed. So planning will help you. But between a plotter and a panster is something called a planster. That is where I feel most at home. It gives you all the safety and security of plotting, but still allows you to leave, as my coach says, a margin for magic. This is what we'll be aiming for in the next 30 days. You can plot as much or as little as you need or as you like. You will have the option to do either formal planning or explore a scene with your characters, or do both. So let's quickly look. These are, of course, a little bit hyperbolic and the extremes of the two, but let's take a look at how we compare them. A plotter usually involves rigid planning. It can be a little bit boring, can be predictable. It's faster to do. You come up with a very planned process. It's very methodical. You have a clear plan so you won't get lost. There's confidence. There is consistent pacing in the story. You have a higher chance of finishing, and it can come across a little bit stilted sometimes. For a panster, there is freedom, there is fun, it is surprising, but it is a little bit slower because you tend to write sporadically in these big bursts, and then you tend to slow down a bit when you abandon the project for a little while and you come back and it's this big burst of inspiration again, and then you abandon the project. So it can be a little bit slower in that sense. It's definitely a more organic process, it's a discovery process. There's more uncertainty in the process. Sometimes it's that irregular pace where the story is these bursts of action and then it peters out. There's a high chance of quitting, but you do have great momentum if you can keep going through those bursts. Then you have something called the planster, and that's which I like because it gives you both freedom and security. It's fun but disciplined. It's surprising and it's well planned. It's a manageable pace. It's the joy of discovery and of knowing. There is a solution for when you are stuck, confidence and spontaneity. It's productive. You end up with a well-paced story. So you neither want irregular pace, but you also don't want too consistent pacing. Too consistent pacing gives you this tick, 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 whereas you want a story that goes faster and slower and faster still. Okay. So you want a well-paced story, a completed story, and you have the benefit of momentum when you write with a planster. Let me just double check. I see some questions in the chat. We'll talk about rewriting in the moment, Jennifer. And then I'll come back to some of these. Oh, thanks, Anne. It is a favorite quote of mine. Okay, so here we go. What plotting is and what plotting isn't. So for the longest time, we have been told that plotting is the only way to write a book. We have to know everything before we start, and that has never worked for me. It just made me feel like a big failure. I had to spend a lot of time figuring out what plotting meant for me. I know some, but not all of my plot. I write a lot and then I go back to read it again before I go forward. I write, I read, I repeat. Okay, so I would really write in that burst of inspiration and then I'd stop and then I'd go back, and then I'd go look at what happened in my story. However, just when I do say I go back to look at what I have done, that does not entail rewriting. I'm a little bit pedantic about that because what tends to happen is if we go back to the beginning of our story the whole time and we keep rewriting, we end up rewriting the first 3 or 5 chapters over and over and over and over again until you are absolutely sick of those 5 chapters. And then, of course, the new story idea comes along and you go, oh, that looks like fun, and off you rush and you never finish this manuscript. The one thing you will see when you get to the end of your manuscript, how much of an effect the end has on the beginning of your story. Once you have the ending, it influences everything in those first 3 chapters, and you understand what it is that you need in the beginning of your story. If you keep trying to polish the beginning without the ending, it's kind of like, what can I say? It's like building the piece of the puzzle, but like the frame is gone and half the puzzle pieces have gone. You just keep polishing this one corner, but you'll never finish the puzzle. Okay. So when I say I go back, it's to write and then to read, but I make notes, not changes. That's a little mantra that I have going. For those of you who've done 52 scenes, you will hear that over and over again. Make notes, not pages. Make notes, not changes. Okay. So I want you to find what works for you. This process is filled with trial and error. You will be frustrated and challenged, but you will be rewarded. So let's quickly talk about first drafts and second drafts. A first draft, this is at this stage, your story is still developing. It is growing and finding its shape. You need to give it room to breathe. Let it be free. Don't try to force any of it. At this stage, we are developing story. We are not forcing theory, massaging sentences, or fixing grammar. Yeah, fix your typos and your missing words, but remember, we are focusing on the story. You are uncovering and discovering your story. This is not the time to apply the rules. Okay. If you have no story yet, don't worry about the rules. Be aware of the requirements, but follow the characters. I like to call the theory second draft stuff. When you are writing that first draft of the story, what's that quote? You're just telling yourself the story. Just get that story on the page in its rawest, most organic form. If you're going to stop in every scene going, oh crap, Mia said I'm a show. Where must I show? Am I showing? Is this a showing scene? What should this be? You're never going to get through a scene. Okay. So we kind of forget about that stuff a little bit. The more practiced you become as a writer, the more experienced you become, the more you will start incorporating theory in your first draft automatically. But if you are just starting out and you're just trying to get your story on the page, do not try and force the story or a bunch of theory onto the first draft. You are going to paralyze your first draft. You want your first draft to be gentle and free. Okay. So a first draft, you just put things on the page and you see where the characters lead you or take you. Okay. Then this challenge is also great for rewriting because in 52 scenes, I talk about the middle homework. Okay, so once you've finished a draft, this is where you kind of have to try and whip this thing into shape, but it is a monstrous task because you're sitting with, it's trying to like holding like a bunch of balloons in your arms and not by the strings, by the thing itself without losing a balloon. And you don't know which one to take, you don't know which one to lose, and then one flies off and you don't know what's going on. So this kind of helps you to take that process of prepping for a rewrite and making you logically work through the manuscript. Okay, so if you have completed a draft, the challenge is brilliant to do before you start your rewrite. You can start applying the theory more deliberately, looking at where you need to show and sorting viewpoint or working on consistency, but story still comes first. Keep your writing fluid and free. The most important thing you need to remember is to remain flexible, keep an open mind, to have fun. Fun is infectious for your reader and your characters. So when you come through with those writing exercises, I'll show you some examples of them now. But for example, delve into your antagonist's motivation. Then you'll go where a first draft writer will go write that scene. You will go find that scene in your manuscript. If you don't have that kind of scene, either you need to address some kind of motivation for your antagonist, or you may have not considered it, and your antagonist may be evil for the sake of evil, and then perhaps you'll strengthen it by putting some motivation behind that. Okay, so it's kind of like reverse engineering your first draft. So sometimes we plot at the beginning, and in this case, you'll plot in the end. Okay, so about rewriting. Make peace with the fact that you'll rewrite. People will also tell you that you don't need to rewrite if you plot. I call bull. In fact, embrace the fact that you will rewrite. Whatever goes wrong in the first draft, you will fix in the second. It is impossible to predict how many rewrites you will have to do. An experienced writer can tell a simple story. Telling a simple story may need very few rewrites. An inexperienced writer telling a very complicated story may need more rewrites. Rewriting is where you smooth and fix and mold your story. Okay, rewriting, I can't remember who said it, but he says, I'm not a great writer, but I'm a great rewriter, because that is truly where you go make the magic in your story. I can't remember who said it though. Okay. The next thing that I want you to keep coming back to when you are writing any kind of story is the importance of making decisions and taking action. This does sound contradictory because I've just told you to be free, but you get stuck with your first draft when you don't want to make decisions. You can't see your future. You can't see your character's future. You can create it, but you can't predict it. Not yet anyway. Action creates clarity. It'll either work or it won't. Make the decision. It's weird, but most of the time it works out. If it doesn't, you'll try again, and that is why there are rewrites. I cannot stress the importance of this. you're going to make it so hard for yourself when if your character comes up and they have a decision, option one or option two, and you're going to go, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. You won't know until you've written it. That is, if you can just take that away from tonight, is the importance of making decisions. There is no way to predict if it's right or wrong. Make the decision. If it's wrong, you have extra 6 scenes of conflict, which is fantastic. And then your character can make the right decision and you can go off on a new path. Okay. So action creates clarity. Make the decision. Don't go, I don't know. No one knows. The next thing that's really difficult in a story is the trust. Okay. One of the hardest things with writing is to learn to trust the process. I always say if you show up to the page, your character will show up too. You have to start writing to know what will happen. That is why making decisions is so important. Okay. Just keep showing up and make peace with the not knowing. That is the most important thing that you have to learn when you do this. It's one of the most beautiful things to see in a process of 52 scenes with these writers. You know, they're very tentative and they're like, I don't know, I'm going to see how this goes. We will, you know, I don't know, I don't know. And then as you can see them growing, they kind of learn that this is the process. They learn to trust the not knowing. They learn to trust the insecurity. At some point during the year, I give them this is the feeling speech. I have no clue what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm going to write this week. Congratulations, you are writing. That is what it feels like. Okay. So learn to trust your story. It's so, so, so important. What Casa said on day 14. Another shout out of praise for 30 Days of Plotting. I decided to do prompt 14 on a non-POV side character's backstory. It turned out to be incredibly helpful for figuring out her personality during the novel's time frame. I've also found the sub 500 rule to be fantastic. I normally write using economy of words, but the 500 word limitation has tightened up my prose for the better. As always, deadlines make me produce results. So thanks for being a recovering procrastinator too, and thanks for the live class the other day. It's great to use these exercises to explore parts of your novel. So let's quickly take a look at the process for 30 Days of Plotting. This is, should you want to do this on your own, go try and find your own system to apply to this. So I have broken the theory of plotting into 30 sections, okay? Each section comes with a prompt and an exercise, and each day you will receive the lesson, prompt, and the exercise. You will read the lesson. Then you choose to complete the exercise or write a mini scene of about 500 words or both. The idea will be that at the end of the 30 days, you will have several mini scenes, things like character bios, setting descriptions, and a long list of scene ideas. Okay, so let's quickly work through the overview of the theory so you can see the big picture. The first thing you need to figure out is how much story do you need? Okay, so we break it down. The saying goes, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. How do you write a book? One scene at a time. We often underestimate how much we need. And then we get overwhelmed when we realize how much story we actually need. So to make this a little bit easier, we are going to work with word counts. This helps underwriters write enough, and it stops overwriters from writing too much. We will plan for a book of about 80,000 words. This is the stock standard length for a genre novel, and most beginner authors are published at this length. So when I talk about the math, this is just a guideline. It is by no means cast in stone. It is also just something to help us keep track. Okay, so we work with scenes. Scenes are about 1,300 to 1,600 words in length. These are the numbers we use for the 52 scenes in 52 weeks challenge. So some writers write longer scenes and some writers write shorter scenes. You'll figure it out as you go along. Just write it as it comes out. If you write longer scenes, you will ultimately have fewer. If you write shorter scenes, you will have more. The goal is to make up the word count. So we'll all end up with the same around 80,000 words. But a writer like Janet Fitch, for example, tends to write very long scenes. And she will have maybe 45 scenes where we have 52 or 60. A writer like James Patterson writes lots of short scenes. So he may have 100 scenes where we end up with 60 or 52 scenes. Okay. So if you've done the math, you'll know you read around 60 scenes. We specifically use 52 scenes because there are 52 weeks in the year. Again, this is just a guide, but the numbers do help, especially if you don't plot a lot. So if you have a draft, divide your book into quarters. If you don't have a draft yet, it helps to think about your book in sections or instead of one big chunk that could become overwhelming. We use quarters for a 3-act structure. Okay, so it's 3 acts that we divide into 4 quarters. What does that look like? The 3 acts, our act 1 is the first quarter of the story. It is the beginning. Okay, in 52 scenes, we do scenes 1 to 13. In act 2, it is quarter 2, and this is the first part of the middle. These are scenes 14 to 26, for example. Whatever you decide, or if you have a rewrite and you have an ultimate number of scenes, just go do the math, divide it into quarters and see what that gives you, okay? So act 2 is quarter 3. That is the second half of the middle. That is scenes 27 to 39, for example. And act 3 is quarter 4, which is the ending of our story. These are scenes 40 to 52. It's good to be aware of these things, but it is something that you can also completely ignore. The numbers are a guide only. Don't get too caught up in them. Okay. What it looks like is this document I will include in the replay email as well, so you can print out your own version of this. But as you can see here, we have the inciting moment, which is the first scene that starts our story. Then we have the first quarter. So this is act 1. Then we have quarters 2 and quarters 3, which then gives us the middle, and act 2, which is our longest act in any story. Okay. And this is divided by plot point 1, plot point 2, and plot point 3, also called surprise 1, surprise 2, or surprise 3. And then we have the final quarter in our story, which is plot 3 to the end of our story. Okay. I use a plotting structure with very few points because I prefer the freedom of that. Something like Hero's Journey, something like Save the Cat has a lot of beats or a lot of points for you to hit. If you prefer more structure, you would really, really like something like that, but you would still use the same. Hero's Journey, divide it into quarters. Save the Cat, go see how you can split it up just to make it more manageable. Okay. In the end, no one's going to know you wrote in quarters or in acts or in threes. It's just helping you to get a handle on this really, really big project. Okay. So, as I said, we write in scenes. So what is a scene? I make use of 2 kinds of scenes. I would like to talk about an action scene and a reaction scene. This theory was penned by someone by the name of Dwight V. Swain, very, very long time ago. It was called Scene and Sequel as well. But it's just a device to kind of help me to structure my Lego blocks, if we can call them that, okay? It's kind of like saying, I'm using this Lego block and I'm using this Lego block, okay, to build this house that is going to be my story. So an action scene, as the name implies, is where the action happens. A reaction scene or a sequel is where we deal with the emotional aftermath of the action scene. So in an action scene, you have bullets flying, you have timers on bombs ticking, you have screaming matches, you have action happening, all right? So when the bullets are flying and the action is happening, your character can't exactly take a moment to pause and think about their life choices, right? No, the bullets are flying, they're fleeing for their life. It's survive, 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 survive. In a reaction scene, which usually comes after 2 or 3 action scenes, you will give your character a moment. It is an emotional reprieve. It's a moment for them to just to react to the emotions of the scene. If a, loved one died in your action scene, your character is going to need to take a moment to go, okay, I need to deal with this. Okay, they have 2 different structures. An action scene, goal, conflict, disaster. You have a scene goal. The scene goal is related to the story goal. So every scene has a goal that's going to bring them closer to achieving or failing to achieve their goal. Then when you start the scene goal, something is going to make it difficult for your character to achieve the goal. Okay. I like to joke, Frodo did not climb up Mount Doom with a cappuccino in his hand. It was difficult. So there has to be some kind of conflict. There has to be some kind of thing that makes it difficult. That conflict is going to lead to a disaster, or you can call it a hanger. A hanger is we are bank robbers. We want to escape the police. We rush out to the getaway car. Our buddy gets shot. They're falling down in the street. We're rushing to the getaway car. The disaster is the keys to the getaway car was in the buddy's pocket. Now, new scene goal, rush to find a new getaway car or rush to find a new escape route because this one has failed. The next conflict, the next disaster, and that's how you build those. Okay, so the disaster at the end of an action scene gives you your next scene goal in the beginning scene. Okay, now you can change the names of these things. Some people don't like disaster, so we use hanger. I'm sorry, my examples are always horribly violent. I don't know, when I sit here, just like for some other reason, there is always bullets flying and people dying. Then you'll have a reaction scene, okay? The reaction scene structure is a little bit different. Your character has an emotional moment where they go, oh, I don't like feeling like this is horrible. I'm so sad. This is terrible. Then they have a quandary. Okay, I have to do, this is my option and this is my option. Then they make a decision and then they take action. That action again leads to the next scene goal in an action scene. So you'll play with action, action, reaction, action, reaction, action, 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 reaction. Okay, depending on what the story is like. Your character has a scene goal that's related to the story goal, something that complicates this goal, and this disaster or action gives you the next scene goal. We repeat this 52 times, easy peasy lemon squeezy, then we all get to go home. Okay. As for people who do join the challenge, okay, that was a very, very quick overview of scene and sequel. It's something that takes a little bit longer to grasp immediately. But we are going to have a bonus scene structure class for everyone who joins the challenge. It'll take place on Monday, 6 October. It's the same times as these classes, so the 11 a.m. class or the 9 p.m. class, whichever was your time for this. But once you sign up, you'll receive all the details for this. And then we have an in-depth class just on scene structure specifically. Okay. On day 17, Casa says, okay, a bit of praise. Day 17 helped create a scene I didn't know I needed. Great stuff, the magic of deadlines. Let's quickly take a look at ideas versus plots. This is a place where we sometimes get stuck as writers. Before we can plot, we need an idea, but we have to understand that an idea is not a plot. A plot involves conflict caused by an antagonist, a protagonist and an antagonist who have two opposing concrete story goals. It starts with an inciting moment, which results in a story goal that causes a series of events. Okay, so your story idea is not a plot. Let's quickly look at some examples. An idea is gladiators, but make it reality TV. That became the plot for Hunger Games. An idea is extreme sports YouTuber gets hired as a spy. It becomes the plot for Triple X. An idea is sick girl reads a book with no ending. It becomes the plot for Our Fault in Our Stars. An idea is businessman falls in love with a prostitute. It becomes the plot for Pretty Woman. An idea is old man visits an old woman, but she does not know him. It became the plot for The Notebook. Okay. So as you can see, these are ideas. The idea sometimes is one scene in your whole story, and then you have to go and unpack it in another 52 scenes. Okay. How do you move your story into plot? Because you do want to have a plot, not a series of events that happen for no particular reason. Something happens. You introduce the scenario, and this usually involves a character. Here we can take a moment to acknowledge that some stories are character driven and some are plot driven. In a very oversimplified explanation, you can say that a character driven story starts with a character around who you create the plot. Okay, so you have this character who walks on the page, and then you think, what is going to happen to them? Where are they? Why are these events going to affect them? Or you can start with a plot driven story. A plot driven story is where you start with that idea, like reality TV versus Hunger Games. And then you are going to decide who that is going to happen to. And that is how you're going to build out the story around that. The idea is, thank you, love you, good night. The idea is that you should not be able to tell if it's character driven or plot driven because you want a good story. Okay, it's like chicken and egg. Okay. So how do we start? Do you have a scenario or do you have a character? You can have both or just one. If you have the scenario or scene idea, start thinking about who the character is who will be in the scene. It's like thinking of reality TV gladiator story and then imagining Katniss. Now, the reason I use that example is because Suzanne Collins made something very, very difficult for herself in that story. Now, spoiler alerts abound. Brace yourselves. If you don't want to know, cover your ears. But if you think about a story like Hunger Games, if you've never watched or heard it, it sounds horrific when I explain it. So please bear with me. But Hunger Games essentially is literally like a reality TV show where they put children in an arena and they make the children kill each other. So, as horrific as that sounds, when you understand the story behind it, it kind of like it's a punishment and that's why they do it. But can you see how difficult it was to create a character who had the ability to kill but did not want to kill? That's kind of like what was a very, very interesting thing that she created with around Katniss. Okay. And she made Katniss's circumstances impossible that she had to take that position. Okay. She never went, I want to do this. So it's just an interesting way where this character was developed. Okay, so if you are starting with a character, imagine who they are and then think of something that will disrupt their day. For example, school teacher sets off on a Monday, ready for the week, but someone from her past shows up. What happens next? Who is she really? Now, here your genre is going to tell you a lot. So if you're telling if it's a thriller crime story, the person arriving in the door is going to be someone sinister, someone she's been running away from, maybe, or hiding from. Maybe she's in witness protection. Okay. If you are telling fun rom-com, it is her best friend from across the country coming back going, I'm engaged, yay, be my bridesmaid. And then they run off and go have fun bridesmaid things. Okay. It depends on the genre, but go think about who the character is, what the situation is, and then go around that and write down these ideas as they come up. Okay. You can brainstorm a few of them and see what they come up with. Okay. Now, you have this idea, and your story has to start with something called an inciting moment. So when you go back to ideas and plots have story goals. This is a challenge, but your story hinges on it. The story goal comes from the inciting moment. What needs to happen in the inciting moment? We meet our protagonist. They're usually doing what we call the everyday goal. Okay, if they're a teacher, they're teaching. If they are a accountant, they're doing accounting things. If they serve ice cream, they're serving ice cream. Whatever is their daily goal. If they're a stay-at-home mom, it's the stay-at-home momming stuff that they do. Okay, so what is that everyday goal? That we do to establish the status quo. Then something is going to disrupt the status quo. That disruption, be it good or bad, it can be threat, it can be opportunity, whatever that disruption is, gives rise to the story goal. Okay. It is something that happens in their everyday that has to be addressed by them. And it has to be pursued, solved, saved, recovered, whatever it is that they need to pursue. That gives you the story goal. Okay. The problem that your character needs to solve, the goal that they need to achieve. The last thing that you introduce in your inciting moment is your antagonist or your opposition character. The opposition character does not have to be evil. They do not have to be a bad person. They are merely in opposition to the goal. Okay. If it is a kid who wants to go study on the other side of the country and their parents go, no, that makes them the opposition character. Not because they're evil, but because they want to keep their child safe. They don't necessarily want the child to travel so far. Whatever their reason is, they can't afford to have a child study across the country, whatever that is, okay? But whatever their reason is, it makes them the opposition character, okay? If there are bad people who want to lock them in the basement, then they're evil. Okay. But if they, for example, have a reason, let's say the child has a medical issue and they want to keep the child safe, they just want to keep their child safe, but they're still in opposition to the child's story goal. Okay. Now, some stories, for example, a detective story, if it is a jewelry heist, and the detective stands in this jewelry store that has been completely looted and ripped apart and everything's taken, the character, the antagonist is no longer there. The robber has left. If the robber is worth their salt at all, they will have fled the scene because we don't want to catch the bad guy in the first scene, right? So the threat that they established is present. The fact that there is a thief has been established. So their threat has been established. If your character, antagonist, is not physically present in the scene. Okay. I just quickly want to check any questions. Oh, thank you, Etcha. I don't think there's a plot out there for mine yet. It's coming, Nathan. I promise you there is a plot for all the stories. Okay, can the circumstances be the antagonist? Great question. Um, Quite often we want to write a story where your character fights a system. Okay, be it a political system, be it, if it's in fantasy, they want, the purple guys want to fight against the blue guys. And then how do you show that? Okay, is you personify those people. So let's say the purple aliens want to fight against the blue blob aliens, okay? And the one is suppressing the other, or the one wants to take over the other one's planet, okay? Now, you usually have this big authoritarian force, and it's usually, let's say it's a government, okay? Your character, small little guy, man again, triumph of the underdog, is not going to go straight up against this, but you are going to personify the threat or the authoritarian government by giving them soldiers, by giving them people on the street who are complicating their lives, people who are enforcing the laws that are suppressing the other people. Okay, so just think how you want to be able to how you can personify that big threat, that system that your character is going up. Give them a face. Okay. If it is this big authoritarian regime they're going up, who is the policeman in the street or the law enforcer in the street going face to face with your characters? Okay. Very cool idea, Nathan. Who are the authorities going to send to the village to physically stop him? Okay, that is what you need to do or need to figure out. Larry says, I am the antagonist and protagonist and my own worst enemy. Larry, are you writing memoir-ish stories? Okay, because what you have to keep in mind is you have two types of conflict in a story. So in every story, your protagonist is their own worst enemy. That is the inner conflict we deal with, and the antagonist forces the outer conflict. So you can't overcome the inner conflict by facing the outer conflict. So just think about what you what you want to do with that. Okay, but give us some ideas then. Okay, Ro, these slides will be available to people who sign up for the challenge. Once I found all my horrible typos. That's what happens when you copy paste quickly. Okay, so let's quickly look at some examples. Paper Palace by Miranda Crowley. How does that story start? It starts with an affair. Okay. She is on a holiday in a holiday home with her family. Her childhood friend is there, and they go outside and start an affair while everyone else is still having dinner. Okay. Very, very abrupt start to a story. Verity by Colleen Hoover. I think if I remember correctly, she was hired as a ghostwriter to complete the manuscript of the author. Okay. And then Titanic, if you think about the movie, Jack Dawson wins poker tickets or the tickets to the Titanic in the poker game, and he rushes, he jumps onto the boat, and his goal is to reach America. Every single person who gets on that boat's goal is to reach America. Okay. As I said earlier, your antagonists don't have to be evil. Please remember that. Okay. If we look at the simplest form of Pride and Prejudice, is Darcy is Elizabeth's antagonist because Elizabeth has certain ideas and Darcy is in direct conflict with that. Okay. Wickham is a huge source of conflict because Wickham is telling Jane lies about Darcy, but primarily, he and Elizabeth are in conflict. He isn't evil. He's a product of his upbringing. They must both overcome their preconceived notions of each other. Okay, at the very simplest form. Okay, now the next thing that people don't always get very, very excited about, but I'm hoping you'll give me the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to encourage you to build your story around only 4 characters. As beginner writers, we tend to add character and setting instead of plot. You end up with a huge cast of characters, but they don't have anything to do. Okay, it's like those, when you go to a cocktail party and you don't know anyone and you're all standing around? That's what happens with your characters. You don't want that. Fewer characters means stronger plot. Okay, it's as simple as that. You will have more characters though. Okay, I want your 4 core to center around your main storyline. You will have other characters. You will have waitresses. You will have petrol station attendants. You will have doctors. You will have receptionists. You will have people who work in the supermarket. All right. There are many. You will have neighbors. You will have friends. All of those characters, but they are to support. They are not your main characters. Okay. Then you'll also have characters which you just call walk-ons, which are characters that literally walk on and walk off. Okay, they perform a function and they leave. We don't necessarily see them again. Just be careful of adding too many characters. So remember when I said you need a goal for your story to move into plot? And this is, we're going to keep coming back to the goal because the goal influences so much. The goal is going to also tell you the function of these characters. Okay, so our first character is our protagonist. Your protagonist's goal is, or the protagonist's goal is to achieve the story goal. The pursuit of the story goal, whatever that is the function of the protagonist. The function of the antagonist is to oppose the goal. They have to try and stop them for whatever reason, or they want the same goal, whatever that is, okay? In fantasy, often all the characters want the same thing. I always say one goal to rule them all. They all want the Iron Throne, they all want the golden ring, whatever they want. They all want the dragon's egg. Okay. Achieve the goal or oppose the goal. Antagonist, protagonist. Then the 2 other characters is we have a friend character. Your friend character does for your protagonist what your friends do for you, okay? They help you achieve your goals most of the time. Sometimes, because these roles can change, we'll talk about that now. But most of the time, if you have a body to bury, you're going to phone your friend. Okay. If you want to run a marathon, you're going to phone your friend. And, well, don't phone me, but phone your other friends and say, do you want to run a marathon with me? Let's start training. Let's do this. Okay. They help you achieve your goals. So there are 3 things your protagonist and your friend have in common. Usually, it's a shared goal. It's shared morals, okay? Meaning, if your characters are cops, they'll both be corrupt cops or they'll both be good cops. Unless one's corrupt and the other one's not corrupt, then we have an antagonist-protagonist situation, okay? So they have shared morals. And usually, they have a shared past, which is where we introduce backstory, where we introduce inner conflict, okay? So friend character introduces shared goals, shared morals, shared past. Then we have a love interest. Now, this is a character, a lot of people will go, I'm not writing romance, I won't have a love interest. Just like your antagonist isn't evil, your love interest does not have to be romantic or sexual. Your love interest is a character that shows us the softer side of your protagonist, that shows us their vulnerabilities and shows us the threat. Okay. So often the love interest doesn't really have an interest in the goal. They're only interested in the protagonist, so they distract them from the goal. Don't go to work today, stay with me. No, don't go run, stay with me. Okay, don't go achieve your goal, rather stay with me. That's the function of the love interest. Okay, it can be a child, it can be a pet, whatever you need to be. Okay, the loved, it's a character that shows us someone that our character loves. So often the love interest is the prize in the story. If you think about the princess in the tower, if it's a kidnapping story where a loved one has to be brought back, they're the prize. So then sometimes they are the goal. And sometimes the love interest is the catalyst in the story. Sometimes it is the death of the love interest that propels the character into the story. And then they want revenge because of their loved one who passed away, who was murdered, or whatever it is. Okay. I'm just checking. Okay, cool. I will come back to these questions again. All right. So now I'm going to cover 5 scenes. Okay. We are going to talk about the inciting moment. We're going to talk about the 3 surprises or the 3 plot points, and then we're going to talk about the ending. Okay. That is 5 of the 30 days that we cover in the 30 Days of Plotting Challenge. And that is all we're going to have time for tonight. But if you just have those 5 scenes, okay, those are the tent poles that are going to keep the big top up. Okay. That is, it forms the skeleton of your story. And as you write, you're going to put the bits on the skeleton. Okay. So these 5 scenes really have important functions. Okay. So as I said, we divided the book into 3 acts, but I prefer to divide it further into 4 quarters. Okay. Each quarter ends on a surprise or a major plot point. So the inciting moment creates the goal. Okay. We have established your character needs something to do. Everyday goal, there's a disruption to the everyday goal. A story goal is born, and the character is in pursuit of the story goal. At the end of the first quarter, in 52 scenes for us, it's the end roughly around scene 13, we have the first surprise. When you get to the third surprise, you evaluate or reevaluate the story goal, because the story goal can change, or the story goal can stay the same, but you raise the stakes. Okay. So if the goal is to hack the bank, the goal doesn't change. The goal is still to hack the bank. But now there is an added security threat, or there is an added, the hacker is diabetic and he's running out of medication. Okay, whatever it is, you raise the stakes. Okay. So first surprise, second surprise, third surprise. Let me quickly go back to this. I just want to show you what it looks like again. Okay, so this was your inciting moment. It's your moment of change for your character that gives you the story goal. Then we write the first quarter where the character tries to solve the problem, and then we get to the first plot point. Okay, does the story goal change? Yes. Okay, pursue the new story goal. Does the story goal stay the same? How have you increased the stakes? That is the question you're going to ask yourself for each one of these surprises. The second surprise is your plot point 2. It is the midpoint of your story. It is the halfway mark. Once again, you're going to say, does my story goal stay the same? Yes. Pursue the new story, the same story goal. How have you raised the stakes? Then you are going to ask, if the story goal changes, what is the new story goal? How am I going to pursue the new story goal? Okay, and the same for plot point 3. Does the story goal stay the same? Yes. How have I raised the stakes? Does the story goal change? Yes, this is the new story goal. So if we go to the kidnapping story, the inciting moment, the moment of change is the kidnapping of a loved one. Okay, the story goal for the first quarter is to get the loved one back. Okay, they're going to raise money. They're going to try to do, then they're going to, in the first plot point, it's going to be a failed exchange. For example, the police arrived, it was foiled, they rushed away. Okay. Then in the second quarter, they're going to try and make contact again and say, please, let's try again. The police won't be there. We've thrown them off. We're running away from the police. Let's try another exchange. Plot point 2, it can be another failed exchange because the loved one is no longer alive. Okay, the loved one has been killed in some kind of altercation. Okay, then the story goal is definitely going to change, because inciting moment, story goal is get the loved one back. Plot point two, story goal is get the loved one back. Plot point two, the loved one is no longer alive, so they can't get the loved one back. Then the story goal can change to revenge. Okay, track down the killers and hand them over to the police. Track down the killers and do worse to them, whatever kind of story you're telling. Okay, so the story goal can change, and then you have a new story goal to pursue, or the story goal can stay the same, but you significantly increase the stakes. Okay, so that is how you get through the middle of your story. All right, let's go where we here. Okay, so your inciting moment creates the goal. First surprise, goal can change or stay the same, but the odds are increased, or the stakes are increased. Second story goal can stay the same, or the stakes are increased. Third surprise, story goal can stay the same, or it can change, whatever you need to do there. And then we get to the end of our story. That's the final bit that we have to do. There is really only one rule for the end. It is lots of fun, but there is only one rule, and that is don't screw it up. Okay. Mickey Spillane said, nobody reads a book to get to the middle. Okay. We read to get to the end. The end is our reward. The end is what we have been hanging on for 80,000 words to see what happens. Okay. The ending is also very simple. You only have three options. The character achieves the goal, the character fails to achieve the goal, or it's ambiguous. We don't know if the character achieved the goal or not. Ambiguity is much harder than you think it is. Okay, lots of people think that, oh, I'll just do ... and the story can peter off. We don't like those kinds of endings. So Paper Palace has an ambiguous ending, which I think worked, caused a lot of controversy, but I think it was quite cool. Marisha Preshel's Night film also had an ambiguous ending, but that to me, I had more mixed feelings about. But ambiguity is not as easy as you think. There is a very fine line between ambiguity and confusion. Okay, so simply decide, does my character achieve the goal or does my character not achieve the goal? Then we shade those with a moral loss or a moral gain. So your character achieves the goal at a moral loss or at a moral gain. Then your character fails to achieve the goal at a moral loss or at a moral gain. If you are telling a Disney family movie, it's usually they achieve the goal at a moral gain. They did the right thing, so everything came through for them and they achieved the right thing, okay, at a moral win. A character fails to achieve the goal. So in Rocky, for example, Rocky doesn't win the fight in the first movie. He loses, but he gets Adrian, he gets the girl. So he fails to achieve the goal, but at a moral win or at a moral gain. Okay. The detectives are going to catch the serial killer. They have the serial killer. They're about to arrest the serial killer, but they have a decision to make. The serial killer is going to flee and he's going to escape, but they can save the victim, or they choose to catch the serial killer and chase him out the door, but then the victim dies. Okay, moral loss or moral gain. They fail to achieve the goal or they succeed at achieving the goal. Okay, can you see how important your story goal is that comes out of your inciting moment? Okay, inciting moment gives you the story goal. Surprises 2 or 3, 2, 3, and 1, 2, and 3. We evaluate the story goal, and then the ending, we achieve the goal or we don't achieve the goal. Okay. On day 27, Carter said, only 3 days left for me to sing the praises, so I'd better get to it. I'm still reaping the reward of those daily deadlines, and I feel like I'm writing some of my best fiction of my writer's journey. If I haven't said it before, I'll say it again. My novel will be stronger thanks to this challenge. So now what? My advice. If it sounds like this can work for you, go for it. If not, ignore it all. Okay, if any of this feels uncomfortable, write the scenes instead. Try, keep it in mind, but just get the story down. This is a first draft. The more experienced you become, the easier you will find it. Find an existing structure and go through it. Okay, so you're planting the seeds now. Even if this won't work for the first draft you're doing, you might come back to this later and be able to go, oh, this is what you meant. This is, oh, look, I did this here. This is where it comes from. Okay. The next question is, why do we still fail? Even with all the theory in the world, writers still fail to finish books. Why? We have a misconception of what plotting is. We follow advice of writers who have found their process, but don't realize it may not be our process. We don't leave a margin for magic, and we don't have help. So, the 30 days of plotting, the process does seem counterintuitive because we've been brainwashed to believe that plotting is the only way that we can be a writer. The only way we can be a writer is that if we know everything from the start. So during the challenge, you'll be given the option to write either the mini scene or complete the plotting exercise or both. The theory lesson for the day is related to the exercise and will refresh your memory and remind you of what you need to do. Are you ready to do this kind of challenge? Where are you in your journey? We learn from theory, but the proof is in the pudding. It is great to have this theory, but the problem remains the same. It is consumption versus application. So I don't know about you, but I love attending writing classes. So I'll sit in all of these writing classes and I'm like, oh, this is so cool, this is so great, but very rarely do I put that into practice. It's a little bit like watching MasterChef. You watch MasterChef and you see all of this fantastic food being created and you look at your kitchen and no one cooked. Okay, because you were watching MasterChef, so there was no cooking happening. You have to get up and go do the cooking. Your trainer can't do your push-ups for you. You are the only one who can do it. So I like to say you don't need another course, you need a deadline. And this is what this challenge will give you. Will give you the discipline to put in the work. So this process works. The pace of the challenge is intense, but that means you won't stall because you have to make decisions. Momentum will carry you through. There is also accountability, and your readers are waiting for you. So you give and receive feedback on your fellow writers' work. You have daily deadlines, daily lessons, and the option to do the plotting exercise or write a scene or both. On day 30, Casa said, applause, fireworks, high fives, and virtual hugs all around. The 30 days of plotting challenge was very successful. It surpassed my expectations, and I was already expecting great things. It was fantastic to share my world and characters with other participants and to receive positive feedback and encouragement. 2 comments inspired me to start compiling an encyclopedia of information about my world, and 2 challenge entries inspired a spin-off novella to cover that character's story outside of the main novel that I worked on. Who should not do this challenge? If you do not enjoy deadlines, you're going to have a very hard time. Okay, the site is called Deadlines for Writers. Everything works on deadlines. We like to pretend we plan, but we all wait for the deadline. Okay, so some writers thrive with deadlines, others get overwhelmed. Decide very carefully if this is going to work for you. A few things to keep in mind. I've been doing this for more than 13 years. I've helped hundreds of writers finish their books, and I'd like to help you too. I have done all of these challenges. I know it is possible. This is about your story. Forget about plot and spend 30 consecutive days working on your story. Here are your other options for plotting. Okay, you can first of all do nothing. You can decide it's not the time. You can give up and postpone your dreams yet again. You can do the same thing you've been doing. You change nothing and hope something will work out this time. You can try another expensive program that promises publication. I'd be wary. Only publishers can promise publication, and writing a book takes time. You are not going to write a perfect book and have it published in under a year. If you can do that, you don't need the company. Okay, save your money and just get it written and published. Or you can start your writing journey with a 30-day planning session, whatever that would look like for you. But in the interest of full disclosure, when I start writing my books, what I usually have is an inciting moment and maybe the first surprise and sometimes a vague idea of the end, maybe. Okay. The second and third surprises surprise me as much as they surprise anyone else. So that is how I start. But I use this as a roadmap to get me through it. I write mini scenes. The more time I spend with my characters, the clearer my story becomes. I even as much as I plan and plot, I don't do anything with character before I start. I get to know my characters on the page. I put them in the hot water and I see where they lead me. Okay. That is how I uncover most of my story. There's not a lot of planning around that. I have an idea of where I'm going to go with the ending, but I let my characters surprise me. The last draft that I worked on, I had a very solid idea of my ending, and I was very sure that was going to be my ending until I got to like the last halfway through the final quarter, and I was like, oh no, this is my ending, and it changed entirely. Okay. So that is the trick with this, is to do the planning, to get the stuff down on the page, but to have an open heart and know that these things can change. Okay. I know this feels very overwhelming and a lot to get your head around, and that is why we don't do it alone. Um, you need to show up. That is your primary task. Great books don't fall from the sky ready for publication. They are written by writers just like you who show up to the page. Writers who put in the work despite the fear, worries, and time constraints. You will receive documents and templates to help you make plans and keep track. Okay. So for example, this first draft checklist you'll receive with the replay anyway, but this Prep Your Plot is a very cool prepping device or plotting device that you can just keep near at hand, which you'll also receive a copy of. The other benefits of the 30 days of plotting, plotting your book this way gives you both the control and safety of plotting, but also a sense of adventure and an opportunity for discovery that just writing gives you. You get an automatic routine. You will write daily. You get the theory, which is a daily email with theory and video classes to remind you of the theory and help you plot as the story develops. No big information dump. There are daily deadlines. You submit daily, which is great for habit forming. You get support from me, a writing coach with more than 13 years of experience, and your fellow writers who have the same goal as you. You get ideas for when you are stuck and stumped. You will get stuck and stumped, okay? But we're here to help you. You learn to overcome self-doubt because you learn to trust yourself and your story. And we work at a really fast pace, so that momentum will help keep you going. There's no time for doubt. Okay. If you're finally ready to show up to the page and put in the work, I'm here, ready and waiting for you. This is my simple deadline-driven system for planning novels. Daily deadlines, daily theory lessons, and the option to complete the prompt or plotting exercise. Can you do this on your own? Of course you can. Go build your own idea what you want to do. Decide to take 30 days to go write a mini scene or plot part of your theory from this class. But given that you're here and still looking for a method, means you maybe haven't quite succeeded yet, and hopefully you're looking for company, because the community, the feedback, and the deadlines will help you plan your story and change the way you write forever. My writers come back to do it again and again. Another bonus is at the end of the challenge, you will receive the workbook with all the theory. So you receive a daily email with the lesson, but if your inbox is a dark bottomless pit like mine is, those emails do get lost. So you'll receive your daily lesson, and I'm not giving you everything beforehand. You'll get your lesson, you'll do the exercise, you'll get your lesson, you'll do the exercise. And at the very end, you'll receive a copy of this workbook. It is a PDF document that you can print out. You can print the pages for the templates, or you can print out the whole book, and it's really, really handy to keep nearby. So you have the theory to keep forever and ever. The templates look like this. This is an example of the email. On day 22, we talk about sources of conflict. You have action, reaction, scene templates, which you'll do in the class. And then, of course, the 30 days of the first draft checklist. For those of you who have been on Deadlines for Writers, you have your own profile where you file all your work, and that's where it all goes and lives. So it's really nice to build a body of work and you start seeing all your work build up. Every time you look at this page, you give your critic irrefutable evidence that you can do this. So it's really, really valuable to see how your work is growing. There are video lessons to reinforce the theory. We all learn in different ways. So what I have done is I've taken this really big class and I've divided them into tiny snippets. So these little videos are between 30 seconds and 3 minutes long, so that when you are writing and you want to go, what did Mia say about the friend character? You don't have to trawl through this entire class again. All you can do is just go find the friend video, quickly watch what I said about the friend video, and then go through that. You can look at what did Mia say about ideas versus plots? What did Mia say about the numbers? And then you've got these very short little snippets to take a look at. Okay. The methods we use on the site, we use the PDF method, which is a combination of prompts, deadlines, and feedback. All our challenges work on this. With the 30-day challenge, we just supercharge the process. We apply mind over manuscript thinking, meaning that we have to take care of the mental game of the writing as much as we do the physical writing that we do. And then, of course, 30 days gives you planning and routine, okay, with the theory lesson, the exercise, and the prompt that you receive daily. Possibilities. If you've been taking notes, I hope you're starting to see the possibilities of this process. Maybe you're even wondering if you've been approaching it all wrong in the past or seeing where you got lost in previous attempts. Or our goal is to create as much material as possible, to brainstorm as many ideas as we can to sustain us for a whole novel. We need those ideas when the procrastination kicks in. So having a plan, a deadline, and readers waiting makes all the difference. As I said in the beginning, the value investment is 147 US dollars. We do have a payment plan where you can pay half at the beginning of the month and half at the end of this month and half at the end of next month. International payments are via PayPal. If you do want to use a credit card, you'll also click the PayPal button and it will open a credit card window where you can fill in your details if you don't have a PayPal account. And South African writers can pay via PayFast, but you must please contact me to be able to do that. Okay, so please keep in mind, we do not do refunds. Okay, I'm not giving you a Fast Act bonus. I'm not giving you anything that you have to decide now. You have literally until the 1st of October to make this decision. Please make sure that you want to do this. Okay, it is a digital product. Everything is already on your computer. There is no way it can be returned. No refunds as well also add to the accountability. Okay, because the transformation is often in the transaction. Okay. So take the time to think about this. I do need you to be sure. I know you can do this, but you need to believe it too. Okay. So recap, daily deadlines, because deadlines make procrastination disappear and stories appear. I'm only an email away. We all need help and advice from a professional. Daily theory emails, the bonus scene structure class, and an epic workbook to keep forever with printable templates and easy to understand theory to help you write so much more. The bonus is the scene structure class for novels, which will take place on the 6th of October, where we deep dive into the structure of scenes. And then our bite-sized plotting videos, which live on the site for you to look at any time. This is an example of the exercise and the prompt that you'll receive daily. Okay, so the exercise on day 8 is write a scene from your antagonist viewpoint that can shed light on why they want to stop the protagonist. Or you can do, the prompt is anchor, write a scene related to your characters and go on from there. Okay. I have been teaching writing courses for more than 13 years, but I've always wanted to offer more. I know writers need more accountability when it comes to planning. Changing the way you think about plotting is the best way to finally finish your book. It doesn't have to be lonely. It doesn't have to be a struggle. What happens when you try to plan without the 30 days of plotting challenge? Most likely nothing will change. You'll keep trying until you eventually give up, or you may finish, but chances are you wouldn't be here if you could do it on your own. I know how you feel, writer. It's a big decision. It's a big commitment. The 30-day challenges are intense. I did this challenge for the first time in 2022. I remember how much work I needed to do on my plot. And how overwhelming the thought of such a big task was. But we broke it down. I did a bit of planning every day. The daily tasks made it manageable. The pace ensured that I made decisions and did not get caught up by what ifs. It was a way to plan that still allowed me to have the freedom of pantsing, but also kept me on track and held me accountable. So remember, writer, throughout it all, I'm only an email away. And let's see what the other writers had to say. So I thoroughly enjoyed Mia's 30 Days of Plotting Challenge. I loved having a structure and prompts that would take me from writing my writing from safe to impactful. Her tips and examples helped tremendously. I also enjoyed the reminder emails when I fell behind. I would definitely recommend the challenge. It was a great learning experience as I'm currently drafting my first novel. It's very reasonably priced and I'm looking forward to taking other courses in future. That's from Tammy. Monica said it was really helpful to have plotting questions asked about story, goals, main and sub-characters, what's at stake, and structure. I highly recommend it whether or not your novel is complete. Be prepared to think and write. Another exceptional challenge, I highly recommend it. Becky said, I now have almost 18,000 words toward a new novel. This was a fun, low stress way for me to explore scenes and ideas, and I'm thrilled with the results and want to keep writing. Cecile said, thank you so much for providing us with a strong program as scaffolding for the novel we want to build. It was challenging and relentless. I'm proud that I stayed with it. And then another gift, more prompts for October. I've already set up my space and will be using one each day. It will feel lonely without you. Okay. So, dear friends, I'm going to stop talking there and I'm going to jump into the chat to ask questions or to answer questions. If there's anything else that comes up, I'd love to hear about your characters. I'd love to hear about your story ideas. So let's see what we can do. I just want to see if we have questions. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, so Jennifer said I'm doing a retelling. Jennifer, I hope I asked your question about the rewrite, or a retelling as in a retelling of the story. Okay, that I would kind of write it still as a first draft, even though it is a retelling. I'm stuck on how to modernize the plot, how much to use that meets the conventional needs of a modern novel. It really depends on how close you want to stick to the retelling, but I mean, a retelling can use the wisp of an idea and change everything completely, or you can stay religious to the story that it is and stick to it. Um, Modern storytelling has changed quite a bit, so it depends on what you're telling it on. I mean, people resubmit a version of Pride and Prejudice every year and they get rejected because storytelling has changed so much. Modern audiences are very advanced, way more than they were so many years ago. And storytelling has changed. Our stories start much faster. We don't have that long build up. We don't have that long de-escalation. We arrive late, we leave early. That's the shortest abbreviation. So if you maybe want to tell me a little bit more about what it is you're planning, but it is really, really up to you to decide how much you want to leave. But I would consider this to be a first draft, even though it is a retelling. Okay. Okay, also, no, I also don't know Unmarriable. Um, I don't know that one, but if you can tell us the story, that'll be cool. Nathan says, if I find it helps me to make brief notes at the end of a complete chapter that I can use as a reminder for the next episode. Great, Nathan, whatever you need to do. I met Michael Robertson, who's an Australian crime writer, and he said, stop in the middle of the sentence. If you, at the end of your writing day, don't complete the sentence, because tomorrow when you sit down, you have to start typing the rest of the sentence and then you're writing already. You don't get stuck with that having to start again. Terry Pratchett said the first draft is just you telling yourself the story. That is absolutely it. Okay, that's why I like to think of craft as second draft stuff. And Hemingway did say the first draft of everything is shit. So if Hemingway's first draft can be shit, imagine the pile of poop that you can create. Go and have so much fun with it and then go build up your story again from there. Okay. Stephen King Stephen King is amazing. He is a very, very experienced storyteller. Like he says, he doesn't know the ending to his stories, and if that works for you, go for it. I like having an idea of my ending because it's kind of like putting a pin in the map. What you'll also see in some of Stephen King's books is you can see that he definitely goes off on a tangent, but he is masterful and very, very experienced, so he knows how to bring his stories back. But just go and kind of think about what you're doing. I really wonder if he honestly has no clue, but it's up to you. He's just a very, very experienced storyteller. So, Cheryl, where did I call you out? Which one was that? um, oh, yes. Yeah. So Nathan says, trusted my main character and he is developing brilliantly. I can feel his nuances. I see it time and again, writers get stuck with their novels when they fight the story. Okay. When the character wants to go darker than they expect it to go, or when they think the story should go in one direction and the characters want to go somewhere else. Um, Trust the story. If it goes quite dark, you can always bring it back, but go there and see what you need to uncover. And then you can decide what kind of story it is. It doesn't mean that is going to be the final version or the final draft. Okay. Or someone refuses to absolutely have a romantic subplot. And sometimes we do need that because it shows the softer side of the character. But it doesn't mean you're going to end up writing a romance. And you can always decide how much of that to include ultimately. But it shows you a lot about who the character is. Okay, so do trust your characters. Okay. Cool, Ro. Yeah, trust is hard. I can't help going back to edits. I need Larry, I don't think it's that bad yet. But going back to edits, if you're fixing typos, it's not a problem. But if you are rewriting large chunks, it's gonna make it really hard for yourself to go forward. It is something we have to unlearn, but also just if that works for you at the moment, if you're still okay, if you are adding more on than you are rewriting, okay, do it. But the stuff you're rewriting, you're just sabotaging yourself going forward because you don't know why something is currently happening in scene 8, for example. You did something that's just weird and you can't figure it out. And you think, oh, I need to change it. When you get to scene 21, you're going to go, that's why I did this in scene 8. I need this. Thank you. I will take it now. And then it just all seems if it works. That is the magic of novel writing. I can't explain it to you. I can't tell you how it works. But if you rewrite scene 8 just after you've done it, you're kind of stealing that magic from it and you're going to make it difficult for yourself down the line. It is very, very difficult. I know. Make notes, not changes. Okay. In whatever document you use, Scrivener, Word, Google Docs all has a comment function. I like going in review, leave comment, and I leave comments for myself. They're sometimes quite lengthy pieces. Sometimes I like rewrite the scene in the comments just because I need to get it out of my system. And often if I do think it needs to change, I say write it forward as if you've made the change. So that you don't have to go back doing it. It is tricky. It has taken me a long time to do that, but really, there's a difference between creating and editing, and we can't edit and create. So what is that quote? Cleaning the house while your kids are home is like brushing your teeth while eating Oreos. It's the same thing. Editing your writing while you're writing a first draft is like brushing your teeth when eating Oreos. Okay, let's adapt it for us. Okay. Let's go take a look. Oh, thank you, Etya's giving us a recommendation. Scene 38. We're almost there, Etya. We're so close to the end. Etya is talking about 52 scenes challenge, which starts in January. So we do 30 days of plotting to get our planning done, and then we write 52 scenes. So some writers do 52 scenes, and then we're about 3/4 into the novel. They'll do 30 days of plotting to tidy up the manuscripts. So Nathan, I hope we'll find your plot. And I think I answered your question about circumstances being the antagonist. If I did not, please ask it again, or ask another question, and then we can talk about it some more. Yeah, Nathan, who did they send to the story? Larry, I think we spoke about yours. Okay, that's cool. Okay, Tia says, if you have two protagonists, e.d. a story told from dual POV, should you have two inciting moments? Tia, it really, really depends on the story, and it's very, very hard to guess. But most of the time, if it's one story with dual POV, there should be one inciting moment. It really depends on the story, because sometimes you have dual storylines, and dual storylines will have their own little like mini inciting moments. One will always take preference. So there's a hierarchy. And if the one POV is a little bit more present and who has the biggest character arc, I think, look at that, who undergoes the biggest change. And then you'll probably start the inciting moment in their story. But it really, really depends on your story. It's very hard for me to guess from there. Okay. So you might have a mini inciting moment for the other one, but most of the time it should all come out of one inciting moment in the book. Okay. It can be a world event. It can be a discovery of a secret, whatever that is. Okay. Maybe if you want to give me more information, I can be clearer in my answer, but go and see. Nathan, you need an antagonist. You're going to make it very hard for yourself if you don't have one. Okay. Great, Anne. I'm glad you're having a very interactive experience. Okay, Nathan, two central ones. I'm not quite sure what you mean by two central ones, the small side ones. Tolkien managed it, but his books were worlds rather than novels. Lord knows how he wrote them. Nathan, yeah. So also something when you keep in mind, and I can't remember who said she was going to be doing the retelling, is when you look for books to base your story on, the more modern the book is, the easier it is you're going to make for yourself. Reason being is even Lord of the Rings, as fantastic as it is a very old book. It is also one of the most abandoned books on things when they look at like Amazon Kindle and stuff. That and Goldfinch, interestingly enough. But everyone wants to, what we say is a classic is a book everyone wants to have read, but nobody wants to read. So if you base your stories on these older stories, we have to write them for a modern audience. Okay. Just because things have changed quite a bit. If you look at Pride and Prejudice, I think the inciting moment only happens about after chapter 5. Whereas in this day and age, I would tell you your inciting moment needs to be scene 1, 2, or 3 at least. And if you have something like your hero rejects the call to action, which is a very typical way to start the hero's journey, the hero goes, or the hero is confronted with a situation and the hero goes, no thanks, I'm out, and they walk off. Something bigger has to happen. So you may have a small inciting moment, then you have a bigger inciting moment that the hero can no longer ignore. Okay. Some stories start very gently. Some stories start with a tap dripping that becomes a puddle, that becomes a stream, that becomes a little river, that goes into the lake. Okay. It is a very slower paced story, depending on the kind of stories you're telling. Other stories start like tsunamis. Okay. They knock you off your feet and they don't let you up for air until they're finished. All right. It really, really depends on the type of story you're telling. So when we're looking at the older stories, just be aware of the fact that we are writing for a modern audience. Okay. If you can think of something like The Matrix, for example. The Matrix is a story that works for a modern audience. It's interesting, lots to talk about in terms of The Matrix, but it's definitely a story for a modern audience because we understand the concepts that are in there, the computers, the wireframes, the possibility of two places existing at the same time. Whereas a very, very long time ago, before computers, that would be a much harder story to tell. Okay. Kirsty says, by the end of what I have written, there are 6 plus the antagonist without the friends. And Kirsty, I'm not sure what you mean by that. If you maybe want to just give me, it is linked. So are you talking about there are 6 different kinds of characters that you're using? So if you are having 6 significant characters, they do it quite often, especially in fantasy. If you need all 6 characters to be united for this, who was the writer who did the Baby Alex Rider? He was the Baby James Bond, the Alex Rider books. And he wrote a series of books where each character had a different power and all 6 of them had to be together to do it. So just go and think about something like that. Then it can work because then you have a group of characters, but just be aware of the fact that it can be a little bit hard to pull off a group because we don't necessarily have one character that you're rooting for. It's kind of like the famous 5s or the secret 7s. There's a whole group of them, and then you have to. It's tricky, but it's doable. All right. So just be aware of what you're doing. Okay. So that's what you are going to do. Oh, okay. Reverse harem story, Kirsty. Yeah, that is. They're they're definitely a differently told story, but you'll even have a hierarchy there. Okay, there'll be a first, a second, and a third, and you'll see how that puts together. Okay. Deborah says, sorry, it keeps opening silly things over my cursor. Question, is it better to have a book idea before the plotting challenge? Deborah, how quickly do you come up with ideas? It is, tricky to decide. For me, a lot of the ideas come out of the prompts when I'm writing. So if there is an inkling of something, you'll be fine. What I just want you to guard against that if that idea comes up is that you choose to stick with one idea because the shiny new idea is real, okay? And it's going to come up and it's going to seem better and easier. But if I didn't have an idea, what I would do is I would rock up and I would take those prompts every day and I would just write and see where they take me. And whatever comes out of that, there is a strong idea that'll start recurring. And then you'll be able to say, okay, this is what it's going to be. So you may have a much looser idea than someone who goes, this is my protagonist, this is my antagonist, this is what that is, okay. But if you just start using those prompts every day to see what it does. You'll get some very, very nice ideas out of that. So you can decide to use it for pure idea generation. Okay. Please can I ask, yes, the replay will be sent out. Hi, Joy. Oh, I'm sorry. The replay with time zones are just my biggest nightmare. The replay will be sent out. Okay. So if you're here, you should receive the link. Okay. Or the protagonist just dies and is replaced by another. Nathan, don't kill your protagonist. It's really difficult when you do that. Okay. George R. R. Martin does that. So he keeps building up this character and then they die and then we start over again with a new one. Go for it if that is your vibe, you want to do it, but you definitely make it harder for yourself if you if you kill your protagonist. Okay. We Wilbur Smith used to do that with his books, where he would write the story about the father, and then there's the son, and the next book's about the son, and then the father dies, and it had this like whole thing. But I mean, he made a fair amount of money with that, so I wouldn't be too tricky.
Love Wilbur Smith.
Yeah, he definitely wrote lots of fun books. So if that's something that you want to do and it's a series you want to go for that. Okay. Replacement could very well be the case. Let's go look. Okay, Anne, good question. I'll be away for a week in October. What happens? You tell me. Okay. So what happens if you do have to go away for a weekend, or you know you're going to have a totally poor week at work? You'll tell me, and then I can give you a few prompts in advance. Okay, I'll give you the exercises and the prompts. So if you're going away Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I will give you those prompts the week before. And I would suggest it is going to make it much easier for you to write those before you go. Okay. The 30-day challenges are very, very intense. And you can catch up. It's totally possible, but you're going to have to work to do it. Okay. And yes, Anne, there is an option to post either with no comments. So you can either post privately, meaning no one sees your post. Okay. It's in the back end of the site, and that's where it goes to live. No one can see or comment on it. The second option, okay, so that's private. The second option is where you choose no comments. And that just means the comment block that is usually at the bottom of your site or at your post is gone. Okay, what you just have to do is write in the title to say no comments so that people don't, it's just save them a click, okay, if you don't want comments. All right, so just make sure that you add that in there. But what that does is it takes away the reading challenge. Okay, it is nice to read, but like Anne, I know has worked on her novel, and am I talking to the right Anne here? Anne Whitehead, is that your question? Okay, so Anne is, if it is the same novel that you're working on, Anne has worked on this novel for quite a while, so I think she just needs this for organization and planning. Okay, whereas if you're in the very beginning stages and you want to bounce ideas and you want to hear what people think, then you'll take the comments. Okay. But it's a 30-day challenge. It is very, very intense. So if you choose to do no comments, you won't have to do any of the reading. So if you are worried about the amount of writing and reading, you can take away the reading part of the challenge. Okay. So, Kirsty says, my mom waits for the last hour to do most things. I try to do them in the first hour. I like to know I have time. Kirsty, that's just how we're all different. I mean, some writers, when the prompt is published, they're like, oh, my story is written. And I'm just like, what? I'm still recovering from the mad rush of the last deadline. So that is why it's so fun to have so many different people. As I only have two, they just live inside my head and change me when then I draw them with my words. Cool. Nathan, I'm assuming you're speaking about characters here. That's cool. Do we stay with the same writers each day or vary it? Okay. So when you read, you will start finding stories you like. You'll find a writer you'll click with. You may find a genre you've never read before, or someone writes in a specific genre that you don't like, then don't read those stories. Okay. But writers do tend to find each other. Okay. You can read anyone. Most writers tend to reciprocate. If you read mine, I'll read yours. But what also happens is that we're all in different parts of the world. So the prompt is published at 12 a.m. my time. Okay, so which is about in an hour and a half, I think. Okay, then the prompt is published. So the Australians get it like mid-morning, midday for them. And the Americans get it before they go to bedish kind of thing. Okay. And then somewhere in that 24 hours, we all have time to post. Okay. It is a fairly long posting window, but you have 24 hours to post. You will find your own rhythm. Okay. If it helps you to wake up a little bit earlier, do it before you go to bed and you post, that's great. All right. So that's also how people choose each other, is like some people post early and then they read each other's work quickly. Other people post last part of the day and then they'll read each other's work. So you can find anyone, you'll find your tribe, posting times, story times, comment types, all those kinds of things. Okay. So you can read anyone's work or you can choose if you want to stay with the same writers. Okay. Amanda, I am already doing the 52 scenes and short story groups. I'm not sure I can comment and read on this, but would like to complete the challenge. Yeah, Amanda, so I'm assuming I answered that question for you. You can turn off commenting in this challenge. Okay. Um, when is the next cycle after this one? Jaron, are you asking when I'm doing this challenge again? We only do it once a year and it'll be next year again, roughly this time. Okay, so it's part of our build up for 52 scenes. So we'll do 30 days of plotting, and then those who want to start their rewrite in the new year or who want to start a new draft will start again in January. Okay. Can you participate if you're going away for the week? Yeah, Mary, you just tell me, I'll give you the prompts, work ahead if you can, or catch up when you get back. Okay, but it's definitely easier to work ahead. I'd love to, but I don't want to conflict with short story school. Larry, yeah, so the class times won't conflict, but it's just a matter of managing your workload. So what I would do if you decide to do this challenge and you're doing 12 short stories, I would go write your short story now, as in like this week, like, and it's finished before the 1st of October. Okay. Then that story is done, and then you'll go do it. And I think so. What your week would look like in October for short story school and this challenge is on the 6th. Oh, we have plotting the short story school class on the 2nd of October. Okay, so then that's done for the month. And then we have the plotting class on the 6th. So those two won't clash. But yeah, what else are you worried about there? Is it just are you doing parts of the other courses?
I'm working on that and I'm working on something else.
That's cool. Okay. You'll know if this is going to work for you or not. Okay. But it's intense. I'm not going to lie to you about it. All right. How many people typically attend the 30-day challenge, Mark? Last year we were about 21 writers. So far we're, I think, 20 for this year, and we've still got about a week to go. All right, so it's between 20, 25 writers at this stage. Okay, I'm hoping, of course, for many, but it's fun with lots of people. That's all. But yeah, it's a nice group. Okay, it's much, much, much smaller than short stories. Okay. Yeah, so the advent of visual entertainment and gaming has quickened that up, definitely. And modern audiences, we're just watching different stories. Storytelling has changed so much. Talking about Tolkien again, Tolkien sold the movie rights to Lord of the Rings for a pittance, because he said no one would ever be able to visually depict the story. And then who was Peter Jackson came along, and I don't think he did a crap job. I kind of enjoyed them. Okay. But that is how storytelling and audiences have changed and developed. Okay. Um, oh, Pam, I'm sorry it's my pile of poop that was inspiring you, but I'm glad the pile of poop was inspiring. Don't put your first draft under any pressure. The only thing the first draft needs to do is be there. Okay, it doesn't have to do anything else. It doesn't have to be good. It doesn't have to be bad. Every time you work on that draft, it becomes better and better and better. But that first little thing that you're creating just needs to exist. It's literally a candle in the wind. You have to protect that little first draft so much. So if you're going to be mean to your first draft and it has to be this, it needs to be this, and make demands of it, it's not going to work. Okay. I talk about the fragility of first drafts. They're fragile. Okay. I wonder how much I could advance my book in 30 days. I figured if I write 2,000, I'll be close to finish a fiction. Eja, that is one hell of a goal. But if you think we submit a 500 mini scene, we submit the exercises, but you're obviously, so you can decide what you want to do. But 2,000 words is a lofty goal. Stephen King reckons he writes 2,000 words a day. He's very, very prolific. He also has, I think, no other responsibilities. I don't get the impression he's cooking dinner and doing the laundry and picking up the kids. So, how many other responsibilities do you have that could impede that time? But if you think of something like NaNoWriMo, which sadly we're not doing this year, but with Nano, the goal was to write 1,776 words a day to have a 50,000 word manuscript. So it's doable. Okay. Oh, thank you, Tia. Cheers, Sarah. Watch out for agents. Yep. Okay. Question. I know this is geared towards novels. Do you think it'll work for picture books? I'm completely unable to finish my picture book biography. Agent is waiting. Pan, what do you mean by picture book biography? How many characters are in your picture book? What do you need? If you can tell me a bit more about that, I could. What exactly does that entail that you have to submit? Is it like biographies for each character? How many characters are there? Okay, reading is a right. Great. Nathan, yes, we must do reading. Chesamanda, thank you. Awesome, Tia. Bye. If you go where to, how do stories get posted? John, we will post in advance. Okay, so if you do go away, you are going to have to contact me and I will explain the whole process, but we get them up. Okay. But it's, like I said, definitely easier to do in advance. It just says she likes intensity. That's good. Oh, thank you, Anne. Cool stuff. Awesome. Would love to see you. Yes, Kirsty, agree with the word count. Carolyn, the 30-day challenge is such fun. I mean, every time I start one, I'm like, Mia, what were you thinking? And then I'm like, ooh, this is fun. Yeah, and Sophie, that like irritates the living crap out of me. So she says, thank you for acknowledging that super prolific writers often don't and didn't historically have regular everyday responsibilities. So important to remember. I just find it fascinating, when you chat to these people, like Stephen King will tell you, don't stop writing unless you have to go to the bathroom. That's great, but if dinner burnings, no one else is going to check the dinner, okay? If the kids have to be picked up from school, I have to stop, okay? So this is kind of a bit what Deadlines for Writers is about as well, and especially 52 Scenes. It's to be able to write your novel without giving up the day job, the family. I want to take time off with my kids. I want to go on awesome holidays. I like my job. I also like the money I earn from my job. I need that money. Okay. I can't just stop and go, oh, I'm going to write my novel and just kind of like, oh, can someone else pay my phone for the month? All right. It doesn't work like that. So this is where these challenges came about, that you were able to do all of that and still write it. I sometimes call 52 Scenes Nano for sloths, okay, because Nano didn't know it's too busy for me, but a scene a week I could do. Okay, Kirsty, do you want to share your question? You just have to
Not a question, sorry, it's more related back to Nano and having someone's just said about having the same 24 hours, which you're so right, we don't. But I did creative writing as part of my degree about 15 years ago, and through that I found NaNoWriMo, and I have done it every year since, even including last year when it obviously didn't run properly as well. I haven't won, inverted commas, every year, but the first 8 years I did. And then what actually changed wasn't what I was doing in a day, but it was my own usable hours, because I became disabled. And a lot of the chronic illnesses mean that I struggle with really bad fatigue and brain fog. Trying to write when you can't even remember words is a nightmare. But you've got to be aware it's not just what you've got going on, as in things that go on your calendar. you've got to be aware of what your body can handle as well. And these challenges where Etta was mentioned earlier, doing 2,000 words a day, if you've got the time, if you've got less responsibilities and your body is healthy enough to do it, then great, go for it. But don't put your body under so much pressure that by the time you get to November, you burn out and you miss November, you miss Christmas, Thanksgiving if you're in America, and New Year's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very true words, Kirsty. It's interesting when we do writing, you know, with a lot of the times I'll chat to someone and they're stuck with their story and this is wrong and the story's not working and everything's terrible. But when we have a conversation and I find out what else is happening in their lives, it's usually 110 other things, because creativity, we do need a certain kind of energy for, and I think we habitually underestimate how much of it takes out of us. You know, it gives us a lot, but it also takes a lot. And if things happen like an illness or job loss or just the crazy events in the world this day, all of it takes its toll on us. And then we think it's the writing, but meantime, it's all the other things that are influencing us and taking its toll on us. So whenever it comes to those things, if you ever want to do nano, choose your own win and decide, I'm going to do 25,000 words. I'm going to do 500 words a day. Whatever that is that you need to do is make them work for you. And that's the same with all of these challenges. Pick something and make it work for you. Don't chase other people's goals. Look after yourselves, exactly what Kirsty says, because it is so, 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 so important. Okay, we have to take care of ourselves and our bodies. Are there any other questions? Oh, lovely comments. Okay. More questions. The rewrite or the replay will be with you hopefully sometimes during the course of my morning. So this video downloads and uploads and cuts and downloads and uploads again, and then I send out the link, but it'll definitely be tomorrow. And then I hope you'll join us for the 30 Days of Plotting Challenge. It is a lot of fun, and it is definitely cool stuff. We get a lot done. But yeah, there are one of our definitely more intense challenges. Okay. So cool stuff. I'm so glad to see everyone joining us. I will send the sign up links and I'll send all of those things out to you. And you can do whatever it is that you need to do. Okay, but it's definitely going to be cool. If there are any more questions that pop up after this, please mail me again and just ask me anything that you need. If there's something unclear about the challenge, please ask me again. Mark dates. We start on the 1st of October and we end on the 30th of October. Okay. So it's quite soon. So you have about 5 days. If you are going to do the challenge, I would, like I said, write your short story, write your poem, get stuff out of the way as much as you can. Okay. If you need to go to the dentist, go to the dentist now. Okay. Do the admin so that we can go have fun. All right. Meal prep. It's really, really good. Just stick those things in the freezer and you can just pop them out every day as you go. All right. Tell everyone they can only wear one outfit for the entire month of October because they have to do their own laundry. All right. All of those fun things. But cool stuff. Thank you so much, friends. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for your time. I really, really appreciate it. And please, yeah, Gina, if you have to skip a day or two, you just tell me. I'll give you the prompts in advance. And then I do need you to have 30 prompts up to earn your sexy personalized e-badge. But just tell me and then we can either post ahead or post afterwards. But go finish your stories. Okay. Cool stuff. And then, as I said, thank you very, very much for joining me. I really, really appreciate your time. I will send, it's a pleasure, Cherry. I will send out the replay link as soon as it's ready. Okay. Go off, take care of yourselves. Thank you for joining me and have fun with your stories. Okay. That's the important part. Thank you, friends. Cool. Have an awesome, awesome evening.
Thanks. Good night.
Bye-bye.